Hi everyone, my name is Victor and I am one of the authors of Technique. Today we're going to continue with our course and we're going to look at creating and managing the Ansible configuration file. Knowing how to manage the Ansible configuration file is very important. So where's this configuration file located? Or rather, where are these configuration files located? So first of all, let's talk about the global default Ansible configuration file. There is a global default Ansible configuration file which is located in etc ansible ansible.cfg. So let's even see what we have in this file. So you can see the different parameters in this file. Oh wow, we have a lot of them. So let me just use the pipe command as against the more command as well. Okay, so you can see the different parameters with different headers or section. So for example, this is an header. This is the default header or section, and when you scroll down, you can as well see other headers in this configuration file. So this is another header or section. We have a lot of parameters in here, and you can also see that most of the parameters are displayed in the INI data structure. So what I'm going to do is to display the important parameters we have here so we can really understand the important parameters. So I'm just going to use the web command to display the parameters, the errors, or rather the different sections that we have in this configuration file. So this is going to be, I'm going to grep that out. So let me just use this command to bring out those different headers that we have. Alright, so you can see the different sections, or rather the headers that we have in this configuration file. So let's talk about the default section. The default section is the general section where some of the default Ansible settings can be defined. If you look at when we displayed this file from the beginning, you can see the different parameters under the default section. So let me just scroll so I can show you that. So this is the default section. You can see that we have different parameters here. We have parameters with their pair. They are in form of the key value pair. So for example, the inventory equals, this is actually the default file for the default inventory file rather for Ansible. So etc Ansible host, if you don't want it to be here, of course we've talked about the inventory file in our previous lesson. So if you don't want the inventory file to be here, all you need to do is just change this location and comment this out. And these are other parameters that can be under this default section. So as we go on in this course, you would understand a lot of these different sections and the parameters that we can have under them. So for example, you can see here that under the default section, we can have our inventory file here. All right. We can also have another important parameter I want to show you here is the sudo user. So we can have the sudo user, which is root. We can have the ask pass, which is true. So of course the value can be either no or 0. So depending on how you want to define your boolean. So let's talk about the ask pass, which is true. Let's talk about this parameter. So this parameter is used to allow playbook prompts for a password by default. So if you don't want the playbook to prompt for a password by default, you need to change this parameter to false, and also of course comment this section out, or you just leave it this way, and then the playbook would not prompt for password by default. Another important key value pair you should take note of here is the remote port. So you can see that the remote port by default is 22. Like we've ascertained that Ansible is an agentless, if there is that word. So we don't have to use any agents in Ansible. All we need to do is to make sure that the SSH are enabled both on the control node and the manage nodes. So by default, the remote port is 22. If you have changed the SSH default port from 22 to any other port on your managed nodes, that should be specified in the configuration file. All right. So let's talk about the other sections that we have here. So let's talk about the next one, which is the inventory section. So this shouldn't be a new thing because we've talked about inventory, how to create inventory files in the previous lesson. So the inventory section is where the settings related to the inventories are defined. All right. And like I said, that the default location of the inventory file is etc ansible host. So let's just look at this file. Ansible host. So this is the location for the default inventory file. You can as well define your inventory, your nodes here. You can as well define them here. So for example, you can see the DB servers groups here. You can see the different nodes we have under the DB servers. Also, you can see the different nodes we have under the web servers. So this is a location. This is a default location where you can always define your Ansible inventory file. All right, and there are also important parameters that are important values under this section. So what I'm going to be doing is not to waste too much of our time on this video. I'm going to be dropping the link to this particular topic in the description section below, so you can easily check the documentation and check other important things that you might want to see under the inventory section. So let's talk about the next section, which is the privilege escalation section. So this section is also a very important section in the Ansible configuration file. So from the word privilege escalation, it simply means that some tasks would require administrative privileges. So for example, for Windows system, that would be the administrator, while for Linux systems, that would be the root user or the sudo users. So, and the privilege escalation directive can be used to do this. This privilege escalation settings is just for you to say that, oh, okay, if you're executing this particular task, and if the current user you're using to execute this particular task cannot do this, escalate the privilege. So let this particular user do this particular task. So you're saying that, hey, I want to escalate the privilege. And let's even see what we have in the privilege escalation section. Let's just do this. Let's see the parameters we have here. So this is going to be privilege. All right, so you can see the different parameters we have under the privilege escalation section. So for example, we have the become equals true parameter. So this means that I want privilege escalation to work. So I want this user, I want it to be true. All right, so I want it to work. That's what it simply means. And you can see the other parameter, which means become method. So which means that you are escalating a privilege as the sudo user, and as the sudo method, you are using the sudo method rather, and of course the user, that's become user, the user that will be doing the particular task which you are escalating the privilege to is the root user. So if you don't want it to be the root user, you can put the particular user. So for example, this can be Michael, this can be Lisa, All right, so of course that means that Lisa or Michael will be among the pseudo groups or the real groups. So you're just saying that, okay, I want to escalate this user as a pseudo user, and I want this particular user to be root or whatsoever user you define here. All right, and this other parameter, which means this is become ask pass. So this means that you don't want the software to prompt the user for a password. So this is false. If you want it otherwise, if you want a password to be prompted for the user, then you need to change this value. All right. Yeah, we also have the SSH connection header. So you can look at the documentation here. Like I said, I'll be dropping the link to this website in the description section below. You can also see the acceleration section. All right. So what I want to mention is that, you know, that this is the, like before we started, I mentioned that this is the global default configuration file, and of course the only person that can have an access to this file is the root user or anyone that an access has been granted to have to edit this global default configuration file. So what if we have any other user that is not allowed to edit this file and needs to run the Ansible software? So this will take us to the other important Ansible configuration files that we have. Yeah, apart from this global default Ansible configuration file, there are other important Ansible configuration files which other users can modify to suit whatsoever they want to do while using the Ansible software. So in the next class, we'll look at this important Ansible configuration files and how to create them and how to manage them. All right, so thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It is a way you can propel us to do more, and it is a way you can help us as well. Subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you once more, and bye for now.